keep on the Nintendo topic and Smash topic. So, there's been a lot of things happening in the Melee community, and we're not like direct participants in the Melee community, but we like really enjoy Smash. You used to play Melee, like 1,000 hours of Melee, so you're like super familiar with the game, obviously. But yeah, there've been a lot of issues around, especially Nintendo taking what seems to be recently more aggressive action towards Melee in particular, but then now it's kind of just expanding out to anything competitive to do with Nintendo. So the first one was they had their official Splatoon 2 North American Open event. A whole bunch of participants started to change their name to Free Melee, which is the sort of hashtag.
The team names, yeah.
Yeah, to support Slippy and Big House that got shut down by Nintendo, and then Nintendo was like, "Oh, due to technical issues and operational issues, we're shutting down the event."
Executional challenges.
Execution challenges. That's right. That's the language. So yeah, that's incredible that they shut that down.
So let me just ask, Mike. I know you're a lover of corporate, terminology and things like that.
Oh yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of the term executional challenges?
What do I think of the term, or what do I think the term means?
Either one.
No, I was just going to say, do you think that's such a bullshit term?
Yeah, absolutely is.
But is it something that you or I would be surprised to hear, Mike?
No, I'm not surprised to hear it
exactly.
at all.
Exactly. I've heard stuff like that at work.
Term that you would, well, actually, it probably is if you're trying to sort of, beat around the bush of what actually happened.
I like when I try to include Mike in this, and he just goes nowhere. Goes nowhere.
Yeah, you couldn't even see his face. He's playing Switch on the video.
I bought and downloaded the Messenger to play while you guys talk about Nintendo.
Hey, I got that for you for Big Kringle. What are you doing? No, I didn't. And then further to Nintendo attacking the Nintendo community that supports it. So there was a streamer that passed away. It was a really, really sad event. Etika, who they'd actually made Etika-inspired Joycon shells. So you can replace your Joycon shells, and it had, some of his catchphrases and things like that on it. Unfortunately, because some of those did breach the IP of Nintendo sent a cease and desist. So they had to bin all of those, and part of that was going to go to charity. And then the other thing, well, there's been a few things. Nintendo's also been really aggressive recently on shutting down channels that have Nintendo soundtracks. So some of these channels have been around for like 6-7 years, and they've got like documented, just like they're not even monetized. They're just, here's the soundtrack to this game on YouTube, and they've shut them down and copyright striked all of those channels as much as they can have. And then just the last few days, we've heard
this is probably the worst one of recent times.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So there's a big startup in the US called Play Versus, and basically what they're trying to do is create esports leagues for colleges and for high schools. Because college sport and high school sport, like high school football is massive in America. It's like a really, really big thing. And they want to have the infrastructure so that you can play like Rocket League or Counter-Strike or League of Legends, all that kind of stuff. Have a whole infrastructure where it's like a national thing that your high school can participate in. And there was an email exchange where basically someone had asked, hey, I want to use your system, but I want to have Smash, like a Smash competition in our high school. And they went back and said, due to the publisher not allowing us, we can't offer that.
Smash Ultimate as well.
Yeah, Smash Ultimate. So, and then when people have bottomed it out, what turned out was that Nintendo had said that they are looking to explore something like that, so they don't want it to be allowed. And
that is a load of crap. Like, jeez, look, I understand there's angles you can take on all this stuff where it makes sense, and the DMCA stuff, soundtracks, I completely understand. The Etsy store, the custom shells, there was a lot of, like, it wasn't just the Etikons, there was a lot of copyrights that he was infringing on, whatever. This, I just don't understand how there's an angle to this at all that makes sense for Nintendo.
Do you know what I think it is, Swinny? This is my whole view on all of this stuff. And number one, we should say that they are in their rights to do all of this stuff.
Of course.
And if they weren't, any of it could be challenged. And no one's challenging it because effectively they can't challenge it. It's just the way it is. Now, that doesn't mean it's right, but I think unfortunately, all the blow up that happened earlier this year, just before we started the podcast, kind of maybe fortunately, there was a lot of really disturbing stuff coming out of the Nintendo tournament scenes. And I should say esports tournament scenes in general. It wasn't just Nintendo. It was, fighting game community. It was like lots of the different communities. And I really do think Nintendo, because again, like a lot of those things don't just go straight to head office or straight to the head honchos that quickly. I think it's filtered through and they're like, why do we want any association with sexual violence and all this other kind of crazy stuff that's happened in these communities? We just don't want a bar of it. Like, we don't want to have anything to do with it. We don't want our brand associated with that. And if that means it pushes everything underground into local scenes, well, that's, for them, probably, that's good. That means it's not getting much visibility.
Yeah, because they don't have control over what goes on beyond that point, right? So someone's using their games and their medium, and a lot of people probably don't even realize they're not behind it. So a lot of people probably instinctively think, "Oh, Nintendo's maybe sponsoring this, or it's a Nintendo event."
I mean, most events, unless they've got Nintendo logos, like I think a lot of people are not assuming Nintendo's part of it.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't think that's how people think of it, though, Swinny. I think you got to think of Nintendo more like I think Disney, where Disney, they don't even want the inference that a Disney branded thing. Like this is a weird left field thing to say, but imagine if there was Disney branded furry costumes. Disney would just like go after that so quickly because everyone in their right mind would know Disney would have nothing to do with that. But they don't even want the perception that they've got association with stuff like that because they're so family orientated with their core brand. And I think Nintendo's the same. I think Nintendo looks at it and goes, we want to be a family brand. We want, a random soccer mom to go, like you've had this, Swinny, where people have asked you questions. Hey, Nintendo, that's a real family friendly thing, right? Like that's safe. Like they don't want that to ever be at risk. And I think
I see the crap on the Easter.
No, but Mike, I know, but I think that they care about that, and honestly, they just don't care about the competitive scene, which it is sad.
I don't think I don't know if the association thing is it for this because I just like it's I think it's one possibility, but it just seems to me like to say that there's possibility that there's stuff happening that we can't control. Well, like that's ridiculous. That is
not a possibility, Swinny. It happened
very carefully, and
but it happened, Swinny. I mean, like in June, there's news articles and major publications that regular folk were reading saying Super Smash Brothers competitive player did this to that, and they've been charged with. I'm not even going to say it on the podcast, right? They've been charged with really heinous stuff. Like that cuts through, man. And people just look at it and go, Nintendo, and then that. Like they're
and most people aren't in the know. We are in the know, obviously.
I find it ridiculous you're kind of defending them on this.
Why?
Because this is ridiculous. Why? Like there's no need to shut down something like for the possibility of something that might happen. Like that is ridiculous. That is getting like there's no defending this particular one. I reckon it's ridiculous.
Look, I don't know why you're saying the possibility. It's happened. It's eventuated.
No, but it hasn't happened at any events because these events never happened.
No, but it happened at events that
had nothing to do with this startup or these college.
Sure, but but it's the same thing. It's like they've had these events, they've had these situations happen at these events. They don't want those events to happen again. I really think it's as straightforward as that. And now, just to say, defending them, the way they operate their business, it makes perfect sense to me why they're doing this. Now, do I like that they're doing this? Absolutely not. Because I would love if they had a really good competitive scene. And like I've said this to you, Swinny, like I actually would love if they released like a HD version of Melee on the Switch. Like that would be sick. Like that would be so cool if they did stuff like that. They're just not interested in that stuff. And like I said, I'm not defending them. I'm just saying the way that they think about things and what they care about. And you got to remember, they're a 130-year-old company. They don't want to risk their company on something that's not even their core business, competitive play.
But they run their own Smash Ultimate events.
Sure, but they have them really sanctioned, and you can't see the competitors, and you can't hear them.
Yeah, I
and
know.
You know what I mean? Like,
to say that they
it's all
don't
watered
want to have
down.
anything to do with that, like they run their own things.
They want. I think ultimately it comes down to they're very risk adverse.
Yeah,
They're
massively.
very, very careful with their brand image, and they're extremely risk adverse, and they don't want anything to be out of their control. And I think they lose too much control over something like this, and then it'll be too hard to rein it back into something.
And it was lost. Like, it eventuated.
Yeah.
And for them, I just don't think there's any, return on equity to do this kind of stuff. Like, it just doesn't make sense for them. And like I said, I'm not necessarily saying that they're doing the right thing. Like, I'm really annoyed at some of the things that they've done, because it feels very much like on the borderline of things that they are able to do legally. But I think it's, it's not clear enough that it would ever be worth challenging. And maybe, Swinny, like, do you want to jump into the last segment just around the Smash Doco?
Yeah, of course.